Welcome back to the Heart of the Machine demo, beginning of Chapter 1, and we have our network tower in place, aka bunker. They've added a couple different pages of explanations here because there was some feedback from players who were quite confused. Why is this happening? I'm in the tutorial. Is this a bug or did I screw something up? So the first one, breaking the fourth wall explicitly, just says this is your character's thought process that you're seeing. And sometimes they're wrong, and you just got to roll with it and try to find a different solution. And then also subterfuge versus stealth. Subterfuge is one of the three major types of gameplay. The other two being hard power, direct conflicts like we had with the investigators in the combat early on. And soft power, trying to get the humans to cooperate with us at least to some degree in accomplishing our goals, common interests, or persuading them, or whatever that might happen to be. May also be publicly doing one thing and then secretly doing the opposite, so that's just a sort of hint at types of subterfuge gameplay that are going to be happening later on in the full experience. So our first research automatically comes in for the city building side. And the city building aspect in Heart of the Machine is obviously not your traditional one where you start with a verdant, unvarnished landscape and build a city, because the city is already here and it was operating well before we showed up. But we're going to be having to work around, especially early on, most of what they have in place, and building things in areas strategically based on what's nearby or how it's divided up. And some of what we build is just going to be our own structures. Some of it's going to be things like the network tower we build inside of already existing buildings and essentially repurpose them for our own aims. So to begin with, create 8 slurry spiders. And the thing that they're going to gather is elemental slurry, which is basically just a mix of basic components. You see the metals there and the gases. And we're just going to click and place these. It's as basic can be. We want to distinguish here in a couple different things. One is jobs and buildings are not the same thing. So our network tower here can be assigned to different jobs, and these spiders can only do slurry right now, but they could be repurposed to other things later as well. There's a bit of modularity there, but obviously each particular type of building can only do so many different types of things, because you can't do a huge amount of storage in a tiny little machine dig site, such as this, for example. The other thing is networks and subnets. So this is our network tower. We only have one network to start. All of our buildings are going to be connected to it, and electricity is shared between all buildings in the network. Pretty straightforward. Subnets are a little bit different, and they are actually, for our purposes as an AI, the only reason that we really care about the roads in the game. And that is roads divide the city into subnets. So this is a subnet, and this is one, and this could be one, and this over here could be one, but why would we build there? It's really small and cramped, and the humans have their buildings in the way, so that isn't really going to work for us. So each different cell can potentially have, different amounts of territory for us to build our subnet, or boy, we're just going to stay away from that. And the reason why this matters is that with subnets, there's a tension between efficiency and security. From a security point of view, if any building in a subnet is damaged, then they're all stunned for a few turns. So you can imagine if the slurry spiders are gathering all of our most basic resources and they're all in one subnet and then they all go offline at once, that's a problem. On the other hand, the more you have them split up, the less efficient it is, because there are buildings you can build which will optimize how your operations are going in that particular subnet, but will not affect the rest of the network. And so you'd have to repeat those buildings in other areas, and there's a limit to how much you can really do that. That is sort of the back and forth, and I'm just going to basically split the difference here at the start and do half of these in each, and we will be able to build more of them later in different places and all of that. Next up, we want to get microbuilders. They're going to take that elemental slurry, produce microbuilders, and then those microbuilders can build for us the larger structures that we want to get into. So we'll need to do a bit of research to make that happen. Okay, these are in place. Microbuilder research is complete. That's under refining here. And it wants us to build 6, but I am actually going to build one more than that so we can see what happens if you run short on power. because we have just enough power to start with to build the slurry spiders and the microbuilders that are requested. And a whole bunch of new handbook entries that are mostly just talking about things that we already did discuss, but also resources aren't finite, and they're all global, so you don't have to do any logistical transport getting from here to there. If you have a resource stored, you have access to it anywhere. And then this is contextual, which I think is one of the really cool ease of use features in the game. If we hit I, then we are going to go to, that's not where we want to be. There's our inventory. 3 resources out of 50, and by the way, there's going to be a lot more than that. That's just how many are presently around in the game. But we can take something like wealth and tell it to be pinned up there or take it off. So we can control what shows up here if you don't happen to like what's there. But it tries to set it to what's appropriate for your current point in the game. And I don't think I want to do anything with our androids yet, but let's take a look at some construction things. This particular one, machine cabinet, that's going to do the micro builders. You can see construction turns remaining 1, and then job installation turns remaining 2, and a bunch of other information. One of the lines it'll say sometimes is basement turns. And that essentially happens after the rest of the construction occurs. And so, for example, on your large storage buildings, the storage building will be up, but then it'll be several turns before it actually gets up to full capacity, because they're hollowing out the area in the subterranean level and getting that all going. So that's important to realize, that just because you just finished construction, it doesn't mean it's 100% up to its maximum effectiveness. And TPS reports. Those are fun. Are we playing Office Space? So 95% losses to electrical shortage. But that doesn't mean it's not working. And you've got these little electrical highlights here. That just means it's going to get 95% of the output. See in the lower right there, has emergency power supply of that tooltip. And so that means it can operate on lower power, and it doesn't matter how low it gets, it'll just give you that percentage of its normal output. There are other buildings, however, that can't operate below a certain threshold. So those will say, I'm going to shut down below a certain percentage of power. But for now, 95%, okay, it's a minor thing. We don't really care. Moving on to the next turn. Okay. So now we have more on our TPS reports. And by the way, you can see the buildings with complaints here. Cycle through them with K. And of course, everybody's complaining because they're low on electricity. What else would you expect? Okay, so we now have more electricity issues to solve. And we can go here and just grab that large wind generator and throw it in the tower like it wants us to do. Or we can say, you know what, I'm just going to take the job assignment here and I'll do it that way. So whichever way you want to choose to do that, you have the functionality to make it happen. And they're basically just saying that the city is always going to be overwhelming for us. You're not always going to know perfectly what's going on everywhere, but that's just part of being in a huge city. And the humans are not going to be entirely super happy with this. They're a little bit wary about what is going on. So we should expect a bit of hostility. Speaking of hostility, here we go. Humans are approaching. Goodbye, solitude. Some are hostile, some are curious. So much for keeping a low profile, huh? And then, yes, electricity is per network. So we've done some combat before. We're going to resolve most of this off-screen, and we'll be back afterwards. We had minimal issues repelling the latest round of corporate interferers, but they did get off a couple shots. I think at least one of them was lucky. Regardless, one shot at each subnet, and now almost everything is stunned. So much for my plan. But we have 1 turn remaining only here, 3 here. Everything will come back online soon, and it won't be a big deal. In terms of repairing the damage, we now have repair spiders available. Look at the details. They are important, but in this case, huge range. And they also don't have to worry about subnet boundaries. They can repair across those. So with that in mind, the suggestion is to put these in subnets. I like putting them in ones where we're probably not going to put anything else. And the point of that is they're not going to get stunned along with everything that they are trying to repair. And then where else? I mean, maybe over here is a good spot. Or you could just put more of them around in all your other main subnets and just be redundant. I mean, that's also possible too. There are many ways to go about this. Another way of repairing is to use a technician. So, activate the repair ability. Bring you over here. And if you hover over that, you're going to see who it's going to repair, including our combat unit there at the top, which has taken some damage as well. Now, there is another way to get that done. Street sense on, and we're looking for the medical sign right there. Hide and self-repair for 2 turns. But do we really want our combat unit out of commission, our only one, for 2 turns? I'm going to say no. I'm going to pass. So we'll definitely use that repair ability. Thank you very much. Another thing to keep in mind when you're building is that every structure you put down is going to subtract 1 from your mental energy. So that's another thing to compete with all of your androids moving around, possibly fighting. If you got a lot of combat going on, it's usually going to be better to just hold off on that construction until later. Unless you're going for a challenge run or something, we are not in a hurry. Got a couple dialogues to deal with, so let's see to that. Scientist. Really excited scientist. AGI researchers from Vorsiber themselves. There's going to be a security update and no more free androids. They don't like us going around commandeering their androids. Imagine that. Stupid security officers doing their stupid jobs. So we'll need to start building our own. And I like how geeked out excited they are. There's an AI in the city. This is fantastic. Something tells me that may not be the official position. Speaking of which, we did get some more handbook updates in. So support jobs, look at the details, basically is all that's saying. Where we get the research inspiration from, we've talked about that. And this is a bit of plot lore about Vorsiber themselves. Why they don't just come in and wipe us out, basically. They look at this as an opportunity. There's some new interesting technology, they might be able to steal it, or in other ways use it to benefit themselves. And we're no threat to them militarily, so, you know, why not? Okay, Android Chamber Trio project, and then we've got the security patch coming in 4 turns. That's how much longer we can go around and take more androids if we need them. And the humans are not idiots, so they're putting 2 and 2 together. This new big tower arrives, and then some androids start behaving strangely. They're figuring out the basic idea of what's going on here. And there is one other dialogue to deal with, so let's do that. Homeless in this case. They're frightened by the tower, but they're also interested. And the solve it with fire, that's basically literally take a flamethrower to all their tents. Which is the maximum evil path, okay, but it's really not the most productive long term, so it's something maybe you want to experiment with once on your own, but we're going to take the other direction. Throw them all back in apartments is basically what we've come up with. It's not hard to make something nicer than a tent. Now, there's not a huge amount of tents in this area, but if we go up this direction and look at this, and this, and this, and it can be really difficult to find places to build in certain areas. We can potentially use all this real estate if we do something about the homeless. So that's one reason for us to actually do this. Whenever you get one of these arrows, it's looking for a target outcome. You get to choose. And why would you ever not choose the smallest item? I mean, that's, you know, littlest effort, go forward. Well, there's a couple reasons. One is, if you look at the research inspiration we're going to get, +1 structural improvement, +1 small arms research. For the larger amount, we get +2 structural improvement, +3 small arms research. So the process of dealing with this problem is going to make us as the AI stronger and better, and that's going to be a positive. The other part isn't given to you directly, but it's more of a long-term thing. Consider, you know, livestock on a farm or crops on a farm. That's basically what humans are to us. They're resources, and we're eventually going to be able to use them in more and more ways. So we're not going to try to save the whole city, although there are options along that direction, but that's not at all necessary. But having a certain amount of humans that we have more influence over, and that we can maybe control more, and that we've solved some problems for. I mean, that's a benefit to us in the long run that we can see in the game. So there we are, and they want us to basically build more microbuilders and slurry spiders, because you should always try to have those basic resources set and then level up to your more powerful things. So let's go into another area. Yeah, this is a new subnet, and we'll just start doing things over here. We can build, yeah, 4 more of those is all that it will let us do. And 1 more of those. Okay. So that's going to be excellent. What else can we get away with building now? Let's try and go after maybe those apartments that we need. I'll throw one of those over here. Do we have any more left for the Android chamber? Indeed we do. Okay, so these are go in a building somewhere projects. And it always seemed more appropriate to me to go to somewhat larger buildings, but really location should be a key consideration here, and we actually only were able to build 1, and that's where our mental energy ran out. Okay. So now what are we going to do? Well, let's just keep going with those Android chambers. They want us to build at least 3, and I'm going to want more. I want to max these out, but we only have enough for the 2 right now, and then we're out of microbuilders. So we kind of have to be patient with that. And now we've got 8 mental energy left, but not enough microbuilders to build anything. So let's take a look at our androids and see what maybe they can accomplish around the city. So there's this tug of war essentially going on between the various interests that we're involved in. Grab one of our technicians. Street sense is on. Let's look at some of these icons we haven't explored before. So soon we're going to get a project to improve our weapons and armor. And that's what all these are about. You can actually do them a little bit early. But a technician is not the best for that. You don't want to go into areas like this. All these mechs and whatnot, they're cool and awesome, and they will blow you up very quickly. So let's leave that alone unless we have a really good reason to go there. Murder android for registration. Now this particular one doesn't even need to do that, but if you want to basically get rid of the mark for defective thing, if your android has offended the powers that be, then that's what you would do there. Notice the 2 turns that it's going to require, so that means this android's out of commission for that long as well on that option. Cold blood. When you just feel the need to be psychotic, or you just really need more mental energy. The fact that killing random human beings in a random building improves your mental energy is scary, but nonetheless it's a thing. See more weapon and armor potential places over there. And this is one that's worth keeping an eye on. Wiretap. Now 7 turns, so it's a long-term commitment for an android. But on the other hand, you're basically stealing money from the middle class, because the rich people had enough security they can afford to make it too difficult, and the poor people don't have enough money we're stealing. So the middle ground is profitable, and we don't need any wealth right now, but it's something that we will need in the future. And do we have anything better for androids to do at the moment? No. So I'm going to send a technician there, and then they are just going to take care of that for us. Let's grab our combat unit to acquire some of the other things that could potentially get us in a fight. Their grip on their shotgun is slack. Looks like an easy target. Guard. Okay, guard for wealthy people, and you can see the difficulty class check. You just need to have a strong android to be successful in this. And we have fit that. The weapon will indeed come in handy. Excellent. And they're going to try to fight us now, but it's a single guard or group of guards or whatever, and, well, we have their weapon. So that's not going to go too well for them. We have a new idea to research as a result of that as well. A smaller version of the shotgun that we just stole, which could be used on other androids. And we now have the ability to produce this for anybody to use. So let's definitely equip that. And you can see plus 50 combat power also allows a new attack type, carbine. So that's going to not only make us stronger, give us more flexibility. It's going to take 3 turns to equip it, but that's a big deal. Our combat units just got quite a bit better. Why not just put it on everybody? Well, technicians. No primary weapons at all. Nickelbot? You can handle primary weapons, but not the heavy ones. So you've got to wait for us to get that light shotgun, and then you'll be able to use that one. So I hope you're all enjoying this so far. We're going to take a break at this point. We should have a good handle on the basics of how you build in a kind of unique way from the inside out. And we will continue with all of this and more projects to come when we return. Thanks for watching.